This story is a prologue to a modern princess. Meanwhile, over the mountains. Do I have a property here? How can we both be neighbors? This is miles away from Morgan's house. No, I owe a condo unit in the city right next door to you. This is one of my houses. Oh, what are you? I'm a CEO of a large corporation. David said as he took a drink. Oh, really? Can I get a job? You know I'm divorced. I need a way to support myself. Laura, you hadn't worked in 3 years. What? Why? She asked in surprise. Because Morgan told you to. I don't know the specifics, but it was after he went to Celine's birthday party. What does Morgan do? He is also a CEO. Are you two business partners or rivals? Laura asked while narrowing her eyes. Rivals. David said with a smile. So you hiding me because you want to mess with Morgan? More or less. I spent a few days in the mountains with David. One day when I was bored he took me to the city to go shopping, and he brought me milk tea. That's when I saw Morgan. He punched David without reason. I tried to pull the man, when he suddenly said, "You can't drink that." I suddenly couldn't breathe. Then I felt a sharp pain from my lower abdomen, then I saw blood running down my leg. Morgan carried me before I fainted. When I woke up, I was in the hospital again. I felt a small discomfort coming from my stomach. The doctor came in and said that I had a miscarriage. What the hell? I didn't even know I was pregnant. When the door swung open, the doctor went to talk to Morgan. He started to cry. He came into my room with tears in eyes. I'm sorry, Laura. I should have been here, he said as he hugged me while crying. While I was lying in bed, I found out from the doctor's conversation. Then I heard the doctor say, "We barely managed to save the child when she was brought from the accident. It was already weak, and barely managed to cling on." I'm sorry. He then told Morgan. This was your wife's second miscarriage. The risk of her having another one is extremely high. You might want to look into having another alternative method to mitigate the risk. If you want to have a child, you could look into getting a surrogate. No, He looked at me and turned back to the doctor. I want to give her another chance. We will try once more. If she has another miscarriage, then I'll convince her to go for the surrogate. I felt a sudden pain in my chest. I felt pathetic. Am I so weak that I can't even conceive my own child? When we returned home, Morgan was really attentive. He would come home from work early and have dinner with me. However, there was an invisible wall between us. The silence in the house was deafening. So I asked him, "How did my first miscarriage happen?" "You were overworked," he said flatly. I then asked, "Why did you hit David out of the blue like that?" "Laura, you've been missing for several days. I was extremely worried that you would eat something that you are allergic to," he said with a worried expression. "If you were so concerned, then why weren't you in the hospital last time?" I asked with a serious expression. "I had a business overseas." Now I remember, he showed up in that post of notification on my phone. He was with another woman while I was in the hospital. "Are you sure that's what you were doing?" I asked. He looked at me questioning. I then showed him my phone, posted with a photo of him with a girl on someone's social media while I was in the hospital. I stood up from the table and said, "There's no need to pretend. I know we're getting divorce. I'll go back to my condo tomorrow. It's not what you think. Why does your mind automatically go there?" he asked. "What am I supposed to think? Are you a movie star? Do you like taking photos with strangers? Or, is this woman Celine? I want to stay at my unit. How do you? Are you starting to remember now? I will get the doctor. I don't remember shit. David told me that we're neighbors and he had a unit next to mine. When we went to the hospital for my follow-up. How long is this going to last?" Morgan asked. "You should count yourself lucky that this is what all your wife has ended up with, considering her brain was deprived of oxygen for more than a minute. Other people aren't as lucky." The doctor sneered at him. "No, Morgan looked at me and said, "You're not going to live by yourself. That's not an option in your condition right now. Don't worry, David is right next door." I was cut off when he said, He is not a good person, Laura. He grabbed my shoulders and said, "You can't trust him." I then responded, "We're divorced, I can do whatever I want." He didn't say a word. He brought me to the unit, but he also brought his luggage with him. What the heck? I didn't agree to this. At least David is right next door. I searched the room looking for any clues about my past. I found a diary in my bedside table. Chapter 3, Laura. I found a diary in the drawer inside my bedside table. Turns out my marriage to Morgan was arranged by my parents to his mother. He only agreed to marry me because his company was in the decline after his father's death. When he took over, he showed a lot of promise. My family was the only one who were willing to do business because Morgan was making money while my family still had connections. As Morgan climbed, my family went under decline. Morgan went abroad for 2 years after we married. I was left with his mother, who seemed to treat me well. Judging from my words, I could tell that we were very close. He only came back when he heard that she was terminally ill. The next few pages were filled with anticipation for a child. Looking like I was hoping for a child to bridge the gap between us. Morgan's mother passed away and the gap seemed to grow wider. Turns out when I had my first miscarriage, Morgan was busy partying with Celine. After 2 more years of silent torment, I finally asked for a divorce. After reading the diary, I didn't know what to feel. I felt nothing. I feel like I should feel something after this revelation. I guess having amnesia isn't all that bad. I can't get sad or angry about anything if I don't remember it. 3 months later, I tried to explain to Laura that there is nothing between me and Celine. You were with her when I had my first miscarriage, and when I had my anaphylactic shock. She said suddenly, "Laura." Before I could say anything, she showed me a page in her diary that stated that I was in Celine's birthday party while she was in the hospital. She also showed me an email from Celine telling her to divorce me and leave. "Your mistress has some nerve, doesn't she? If you have nothing more to say, please leave." I stared at Laura, and when she turned away, then she suddenly fell to the floor. I panicked and rushed over to Laura. She was struggling to breathe. "Where is your EpiPen?" I scoured the kitchen. I paused for a second when I saw strawberries in the fruit bowl. I found the pen in one of the cabinet and immediately injected it to her leg. I hugged her and said, "You're allergic to strawberries." I kissed her forehead and carried her to the sofa. I then turned my attention to the kitchen. I then yelled, "Didn't I say to let me do the groceries?" I said as I searched for fridge and found that it was filled with things she was allergic to. I throw them out one by one. "You're allergic to this, and this, especially this." I picked up a gallon of milk and turned to her. "You're allergic to milk," I said as I emptied it in her sink and threw it in the trash. "And don't even think of eating this cheesecake. You just throw out nearly the entire fridge. Do we still have something for dinner?" she asked, still huffing. "I wouldn't be throwing out food like this. If you just did what I ask you to do, and told me when we needed groceries." I yelled. "Your secretary said you were busy, and David offered to take me to the grocery store. I've been stuck inside for days. I just wanted to go out." Hearing that bastard's name made me want to break something, but I restrained myself because of Laura. "I'll order takeout, from an expensive restaurant, who knows your allergies." I picked up the phone and called the restaurant. "It's me. I need food delivered to this address. Don't mess up, my wife just had an attack." As we were waiting, Laura asked me, "Having a meal with me must suck. We don't eat out a lot. You even stopped taking me to gatherings because I had an allergic attack that one time. It's not your fault." Tears started streaming down her face. "I can't remember anything. Even the events in the diary. I'm just going off what's presented in front of me. I'm sorry." I sat on the sofa and made her leaned on me. "It's all right. The doctor said not to rush it. It will come back in due time. And what if it doesn't?" I kissed her and said, "We'll just make new memories." After we had dinner, I promised Laura I would take her grocery shopping in the morning. When she fell asleep, I read her diary alone with her phone. I shattered as I began to read her diary. "What the? This can't be right." Laura wouldn't call her family trash, They never treated her this badly. Her parents are always reminding me to take good care of her. I stared at her handwriting closely. Her parents sent her 2 older brothers abroad for further studies, but they didn't bother with Laura, saying it was due to her health condition. I do remember her complaining about that, but not to this extent. Like this story, comment, and subscribe.